on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra.
Hello and a very warm welcome to you. You're listening to live coverage of the third round of the Formula One World Championship. The circus arrives at an old favourite, Japan, at the iconic Suzuka circuit with cherry blossom season in full flow. The pinks of the trees surrounding the circuit and even infiltrating some of the team liveries this weekend. High winds out there and temperature a little on the chilly side as well to kick things off. But despite the beautiful scenery Suzuka promises, the world of Formula One has thrown up drama once again for us in the build-up to this weekend as we kick off the first triple header of the year. First bit of track action coming your way in just a few minutes' time for free practice one, and guiding you through it alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, is the racing driver Alice Powell. Alice, Japan, Red Bull drama.
Oh, did something happen in the week? I must have missed that. No, we were just saying, weren't we, before we came on air, is how we're both excited to see how Yuki Tsunoda gets on this weekend. Obviously moving across from the Racing Bulls into the main Red Bull factory team. But I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. I think he'll do a good job. There's of course any pressure with any driver that goes with that seat, and it's his home Grand Prix. But I'm also interested to see how Liam Lawson steps back into the Racing Bulls. He'll be determined to just prove Helmut Marko wrong, because I think actually he's got the support from the rest of the paddock, including his previous teammate Max Verstappen, who was made it clear in the press conference yesterday that he liked a social media post which basically was saying that Red Bull have been very harsh to him, and he said, well, yeah, it was me that liked it, so it speaks for itself, doesn't it? Yeah, that post made by the former F1 driver Guido van der Garde, who is friends with the Verstappen family. There's a lot of mixed feelings, isn't there? Because while no one wants to see Liam Lawson struggling at the back of the field, I think a lot of people felt it was too harsh after 1.5 weekends, let's say, because we had our first weekend in Australia where mixed conditions made it so tricky for all the rookies, all the drivers. Then we had China straight after, which was a sprint weekend, so you only get one practice session, both circuits that Liam Lawson had never raced at, and then that's it. We come to the first track that Liam Lawson actually knows quite well, has raced around here before in Super Formula and has done very well, and also raced here last year too, or a couple of years prior, I should say, in 2023 when he replaced Daniel Ricciardo. But the other side of it is also everyone's quite pleased to see Yuki Tsunoda get that opportunity at last, having been overlooked initially. So it's a real conflict here, isn't it? Yeah, it's a massive conflict, but Yuki will be keen to prove Red Bull that they should have put him in earlier, effectively. It's a track that clearly he knows very well, and actually it was a track that Liam Lawson knew. So again, another surprise of why they chose to move him so early. Could be a bit of politics. There's always politics involved with it. Yuki being his home race, that Honda connection, so it makes an even better story, especially if he does well up against Max Verstappen. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks of why they just didn't put him in the seat in the first place. There'll be many reasons behind that, of course, but I think the main thing is that both drivers are probably going to be, maybe Liam might be slightly more comfortable now he's back in a family that or a team that gave him such a nice welcome when he first entered Formula One, and also welcomed him back quite nicely when he came into the paddock yesterday. Yuki Tsunoda is sat in his Red Bull car, surrounded in the garage. Every driver promoted mid-season to Red Bull has finished in the top 5 the next race. How's that for a stat that might be looking rather promising for Yuki Tsunoda? It's going to be a tough task for him to get up to speed quickly in a car that we know is difficult to drive. Max Verstappen will be the first one to say it can be a bit nervous. On the front end, it's so sensitive as well. And I wonder, as a driver, Alice, when it comes to mentality for both Tsunoda and Lawson, how do you even deal with it in the first place? Tsunoda, there must be so many things going through his mind, not only the Red Bull transition, but in his home race as well, and the attention that brings, and then Lawson having to rebuild and refocus. How do you treat that as a driver? Of course, you're going to have nerves. Stepping into a team for the first time. It's not the first time he stepped foot, Yuki, into a Red Bull, but as Lewis Hamilton just drives over something as he leaves the garage, but the garage flooring coming up there, but he goes and joins the queue at the end of the pit lane. Light's just gone green for the first free practice session of this weekend, but you would just treat it as any other weekend, or he should be. He's had plenty of races, plenty of free practice sessions under his belt in his Formula One career. So that's the advice I'd be giving him if I was able to give him any advice. Would just treat it as any other weekend. It's a new team, of course, some new faces, new engineer down the other end of the radio. But he's a professional. As we see him exit, so that's Liam Lawson. Sorry,
this is going to happen across the weekend, isn't it?
They look so similar with these, with the new livery on that Red Bull for this weekend. But yeah, just treat it any other race weekend. And Liam Lawson, something slightly similar. Treat it like any other race weekend, but there'll be some hunger in Liam's belly to just prove everybody that made that decision to say effectively bump him back down into the Racing Bulls, and to say, well, hang on, look, I'm out there smashing it, getting great results. It's just your car.
They haven't left him high and dry. He still gets the chance to prove what he can do, can Liam Lawson, in what we think is a rather capable Formula One car as well. That Racing Bulls, which started the season in a rather wonderful white livery. Red Bull have brought a special white livery for Tsunoda and Verstappen this weekend. It's to recognise Honda and the first F1 winner for Honda, the RA272, the 1965 Mexico Grand Prix winner, with Richie Ginther at the wheel of that. So we've got 4 white bulls in the field, so that's going to be a fun one to pick out if they're close to each other in the field. However, we are now underway for free practice 1. The green light well and truly on. Cars out on track. Indeed, pretty much everybody. 16 cars out on the circuit. Make that 17 now, and for those who wish to do a sync up, it's 57 minutes and 46 seconds remain. And Alice, why is it that pretty much every driver raves about this Suzuka circuit? What is it about this track, the layout, the design of it, that just makes it a real driver's circuit?
I think that first sector everybody raves about. You've got DRS open all the way down into turn 1, and then you've got the famous S's. You go left, right, and a feeling with a car that's a Formula One car that's got so much grip, so much downforce. It's almost like being on a roller coaster. And of course, as a racing driver, most of them would like that sense, that feeling of flying and the downforce of being thrown left to right, having to be so precise, because the walls are very close here. There's no room for error. We've seen that plenty of times in the past. And then, of course, you've got some slower corners, slightly slower Degners. 130R is probably the fastest flat-out left-hander as you approach the final much slower chicane. So it's got a bit of everything, but particularly if you speak to most drivers on this grid, if not all of them, they will say that S's, that first middle part of sector 1 as we ride on board now with Yuki Tsunoda, who comes through into turn 8, that famous double Degner down into to turn 9, out on a soft set of tyres. Harry, they have 8 sets of softs this weekend. That's the C3 tyre, 3 sets of the medium C2 and 2 sets of the C1. So Pirelli have chosen to bring the hardest trio of tyre compounds this weekend.
This is the sound of Tsunoda making his way to Spoon Curve, the left-hander through turns 13 and 14 as you loop back on yourself this figure of 8 circuit, which at least helps slightly with the tyre wear, keeps things fairly even. But this track, we are expecting it to be tough on tyres, approaching what will be flat out 130R. Tsunoda already getting north of 300 kilometers an hour as he makes his way through, hits the curbs as he comes into the Casio triangle, chucks it right, chucks it left, round the final corner, which arcs onto the main straight. His first proper flying lap as a Red Bull driver is complete for Yuki Tsunoda, who puts it up into 4th spot, a 1:32.5. It's Max Verstappen, though, who is fastest in the other Red Bull, a 1:37.38 ahead of Hamilton. Sainz. Then comes Tsunoda and Oscar Piastri out there. How much also, Alice, will the fact the track's actually been resurfaced all the way, pretty much in the first sector, all the way from turn 1 up through the S's, up to Degner 1, turns 1 to 8, really. So what does that do to a circuit?
So talking to a couple of people at one or two of the teams, they're expecting it to be a pretty decent level of grip there. It will be slightly faster. How much? Who knows? The teams would have laser scanned the track, so their simulators get every nook, every cranny, every bump, so they implement that onto their simulator. Obviously, it's not 100% like the real thing, so there may be a few little surprises, a few bumps that they may have missed, but certainly looking at the footage that we're seeing at the moment, looks fairly smooth, looks fairly clean, a little bit dusty on the outside, as you would expect offline, but their teams are expecting lap times to be quicker, potentially up to 1 to 1.5 seconds faster.
Yeah, let's see how the track ramps up and evolves over time. A full weekend, unlike in China, not a sprint this weekend, so we will get the full sessions. Just getting a replay. I think this was Tsunoda coming into the hairpin, and just as he applies the throttle, the car just steps out from the rear. He has to do a bit of saving action, Alice.
Yeah, there we go. Bit of a lost grip on the rear. We're getting another replay of Max Verstappen chucking up a lot of dust on these freshly painted curbs on the outside. That looks like he could be, was that going into turn 9 potentially? Chucking up a lot of dust and dirt, but there's a lovely crowd already out for this free practice one. It's always hugely popular amongst fans. Lots of fans often like to travel quite large distances to come to Suzuka. The atmosphere, the outfits that we get to see as well around the circuit, some hugely impressive ones as Oscar Piastri heads flat out down to 130R. A man that will be full of confidence from his last time out in China. A very impressive victory. He navigates a little bit of traffic, and which forces him wide. Actually, the Alpine that was just sat on the racing lines, they were queuing going into the final corner. But he won't be too bothered this early on in the session. Pops himself up into 3rd place, was a 1:31.581.
Took his maiden front row and podium in Suzuka, did Oscar Piastri, and was pretty spectacular last time out in China. And the McLarens are looking, based off a smaller sample set from the first 2 races, but they are looking like the ones to beat. They are and have been more often than not the quickest cars out on track. Lando Norris leads the Drivers' Championship. McLaren lead the Constructors' Championship. This has surely got McLaren written all over it this weekend.
That's what we expect, but you could never rule out Max. Max has such a great history round this circuit. He's been unbeaten at Suzuka in qualifying all race since 2019, has won the past 3 Japanese Grand Prix. Obviously, we didn't have the race here in 2020, 2021. So it's a guy full of confidence. He's setting the pace at the moment, fastest of anyone in that first sector. Fernando Alonso navigates some more traffic coming into that final sector. McLaren, I think that was Lando Norris with the Flovis paint all on the left-hand side of the car. But never rule out Max. As I said, someone that is very in touch, very much enjoying this circuit. He is on the soft tyre at the moment, so we do expect him to be setting the pace. As Fernando Alonso jumps up into 2nd, he's out on the hard tyre. Not having a good ride for the first couple of races so far this season,
He's
Harry.
not classified in the championship.
No, and of course Lance is the only driver to have scored all their points, because Fernando's not finished the first 2 races of the season.
Yeah, it hasn't been the ideal start for Fernando Alonso, it has to be said. Brake issues last time out in China. The team actually said that's because they was running a different kind of brake duct, which didn't go so well for him, having to retire. And on the flip side, Lance Stroll, 10 points from the first 2 races for Aston Martin. That's his strongest ever start to a season. So contrasting fortunes for the 2 Aston Martin drivers, but Alonso hoping to get off his season to a flying start here in Suzuka instead, and we'll just forget about the first 2 races.
Any initial balance feeling? Looks a little bit nervous, low speed perhaps.
If you're wondering whose voice that is, that's Ryo Hirakawa. We've got a couple of drivers in the field today that you won't see for the rest of the weekend. The first being Hirakawa. We have seen him before, the Japanese driver who signed as one of the test and reserve drivers for Alpine this year. He's a World Endurance Championship hypercar driver for Toyota, quite heavily backed by them. Indeed, has won Le Mans with them and the World Endurance Championship back in 2023. Very nifty around this circuit as well, from his Japanese Formula 3, his Super GT and Super Formula days. He's in the car in place of Jack Doohan, getting an FP1 run out as part of the rules now state that you must have FP1 drivers to take 2 spots throughout the year in each car. So Ryo Hirakawa getting a go there. And the other driver in the field is Dino Beganovic. Now he is making his debut for Ferrari, the Swedish Bosnian racer, just 21 years old, and this year will be racing in Formula 2. Did that last year as well on his just did 4 races last year on his way to 1 podium in the season finale. But he'll be in place for Charles I should say, oh no, it's not Dino Beganovic in the car, I don't think. No, it's not. I thought it was. It still says Leclerc and Hamilton, so I've got that wrong. I'll take it all back.
I was looking at the time screen going, I know it's
I was convinced I saw that earlier,
but I can't see his name.
I'll take it all back.
We'll let you off this time, Harry. We'll let you off as we just
it's definitely Hirakawa though, yeah?
Yeah, it definitely is Hirakawa, who just runs slightly wide on the exit of turn 11, one of the tightest corners of the track, the hairpin, where you'll see some moves being sent down the inside or the outside, whichever's your preferred option throughout the weekend. It's just quite busy through sector 1. He's having to navigate a few of the drivers to on a cool down lap through Spoon, and I think he's decided to actually back off himself due to that traffic.
I was 1 race early with Beganovic. I think he'll be in Bahrain, so I'll come back to all those stats in a week's time. But Ryo Hirakawa is in there. No Jack Doohan, which that'll be a tough one for Doohan though, won't it? Because again, he doesn't have much experience of this track. He did race back here in 2019 in a Asian Formula 3 race, but for the rookie driver to be the one that has to make way in the early part of the season, that seems like a tough one for him to take.
Yes, it's a track, like you said, he's won here in Asian Formula 3, so he's got some experience of going round here. So it is a tough one, a driver so early on that needs experience. That's why I'm kind of surprised that they've taken the rookie out. But there we go. It's up to Alpine, of course, not up to us, as Liam Lawson now out on the hard tyre. Not really set a proper representative lap time, down in 17th place at the moment, set a personal best in that first sector. So he'll be looking to get reacquainted with the racing ball quite quickly, up against, of course, Isaac Hadjar, another driver who came along on the junior programme alongside Liam Lawson, as he makes use of all the road on the exit of turn 14, which is the exit of Spoon, all the way up to 130R, which is turn 15. He's a little bit down actually in the first and second sector compared to Max Verstappen. However, Verstappen's time was set on the soft tyre. Into the final part of the lap, Harry gets it nice nicely into turn 16 and 17 and flat chat onto the main straight, which is our only DRS zone for the weekend.
Lawson crosses the line up to 13th spot, so a lot of eyes on Liam Lawson coming into this weekend. It's been a tough pill to swallow, the demotion from Red Bull to Racing Bulls. He's been speaking in the build-up to this weekend. Let's hear what he had to say.
I think obviously an opportunity this weekend, and yeah, maybe something I wasn't expecting so early, but something that obviously is not my decision. And for me, it's about making the most of obviously this opportunity now, and obviously still being in Formula One, I still have that. So yeah, it's been a good week of preparations, so I'm excited to get going.
It's an odd situation to be in, because even though Red Bull is the top team, the Racing Bulls car has looked very good so far this year. So there is the possibility that he could actually do quite well this weekend in a car that just seems like it's more driver friendly.
Certainly. I mean, Hajar's has come in and you know, taken to a duck to a duck to water, really. He's sat up in 7th place at the moment, but I think for a rookie, okay, let's exclude his little incident. Let's hear from Tsunoda.
How was the balance that lap?
The balance is okay. To be honest, I'm not really pushing it up yet, but I think it's okay.
Yuki Tsunoda easing his way into his first early laps in the Red Bull, but let's ignore let's ignore Hajar's incident at Australia. I think he had a very solid Chinese Grand Prix. So he's clearly, that car is working well. It's feeling comfortable for both Yuki and himself. And like Liam said, it sounds like he's tried to take as many positives as he possibly can from the whole situation, which I think is the right thing to do. He's still in Formula One, and that's also what Ollie Behrman said, who's the driver we are riding on board with now, is that, yeah, it's harsh, but he's got to remember he's still in Formula One. He's still there. He could have easily been just shafted out totally. So taking those positives back to a team that he knows well, back to a team where he knows the car is good and handling well at the moment. So interesting to see how he gets on this weekend. Obviously still a little bit of pressure there, because he's still got the Red Bull logo on his car and on his t-shirt, and Hajar's doing a good job at the moment. 43
minutes, 34, 33 seconds remain. It's George Russell of the Mercedes who's fastest on the medium tyre, a 1:29.6. Then Max Verstappen, who's in the pits at the moment, having come out initially on the soft tyre, ahead of Leclerc. Norris, Alonso's the top 5. Hamilton, Sainz, Hajar, Albon and Gasly is 10th, ahead of Tsunoda. Then comes Piastri, Antonelli, Lawson and Hirakawa is 15th, ahead of Lance Stroll. Gabriel Bortoleto is 17th, ahead of Esteban Ocon in 18th. Nico Hülkenberg 19th, and Ollie Behrman, who is now back out onto the track and making his way around in at 20th in a Haas that also has a special livery this weekend. They've gone for a cherry blossom livery to sort of highlight their growing links with the Japanese manufacturer Toyota, who are their technical partner, Toyota Gazoo Racing. Written quite a lot on that car, especially on the rear wing as well. So a nice tie-up for them. Esteban Ocon in the Haas is just about to come across the line now, and stays in 18th spot. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton is just making his way through 130R, the flat-out left-hander, and a real mixed bag for them last time out in China. From the high of Lewis Hamilton getting his first win for Ferrari in the sprint, to then a double disqualification at the after the race on Sunday for himself and his teammate Charles Leclerc. And what really gets me is, Tsunoda is really fighting the Red Bull coming out of the Casio Triangle and into the final corner, maybe starting to push a bit now, because he's just popped himself up into 5th, about 4/10 off Russell's fastest lap at the moment. But Tsunoda starting to turn the wick up there a little bit. But just coming back to Ferrari, Alice, there's 2 disqualifications for 2 different reasons as well. And I think a lot of people sitting at home might be asking, well, how can a team like Ferrari allow that to happen?
Well, we saw it last year, didn't we, with Mercedes and George Russell at Spa with being underweight. We've seen it. Lewis Hamilton actually it got excluded for something similar back in Austin, didn't he? Was it last year or the year before? As Yuki Tsunoda did get all out of shape on the exit of turn 17, but did pop himself further up the order, 4/10 shy of his teammate Max Verstappen. And it was plank wear, wasn't it? But it's such fine margins carry that they're facing. But yeah, a team like Ferrari making mistakes clearly get made, but to be made across 2 cars, that's a lot of points dropped for not just the drivers, because the drivers want to do well in the Drivers' Championship, but mainly for the teams, it's the constructors. And in a season where we're heading into where it's going to be so close between sort of that, not say mid-pack, but the sharp end of the field, that could be really damaging to Ferrari by the end of the season, when they're looking for that extra couple of million to help them boost their budgets for 2026, and it could be quite damaging.
Well, in terms of the Constructors' Championship, after 2 rounds, 2 races and a sprint, it is McLaren who lead the way, 78 points to their name. They're 21 ahead of Mercedes. Then it's Red Bull. Williams are 4th, actually ahead of Ferrari. They've tied on points, but on countback, Williams have the better results. Haas is 6th ahead of Aston Martin, Sauber, Racing Bulls, and Alpine are actually the team yet to get off the mark. I don't think that's really necessarily a reflection of their car. It just highlights how tight the midfield is, and luck not quite going their way at the moment. And then in terms of the Drivers' Championship, it is Lando Norris with 44 points to his name. He is 8 points clear of Max Verstappen. Then it's George Russell, who's had a great start to the year, 2 podiums from 2 races, ahead of Oscar Piastri. Kimi Antonelli is 5th, Albon, Ocon, Stroll, and the 2 Ferrari drivers, Hamilton and Leclerc, are down in 9th and 10th as a result of those double disqualifications in China, not getting any points to their name. 39 minutes, 20 seconds remain. We've just seen Carlos Sainz making his way round onto the track and came into the pit lane earlier. Here he is.
Box, not well behind. Box. Remember, we had the pinging of the pit lane.
I missed it, guys. I thought we were at the end. Sorry.
Okay, so straight out, and we're boxing again.
Yeah, sorry for that.
I did wonder, because he came into the pits, but our time screen saying he was back out on the circuit, so he's forgotten where Williams are and has completely missed him in the pit box.
Well, that's because for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why, we'll try and find out for free practice 2, but usually if the team that won last year's Constructors, so McLaren, you'll be at the very start of the pit lane, but after we've come here into Suzuka, they are at the other end. So he just forgot that it's a switch around for this weekend.
Well, he's making his way back around and will hopefully find his way into the circuit again. 38 minutes and 3 seconds remain as Max Verstappen now is making his way round the final corner on the soft tyre. Let's see what he can deliver. Does indeed increase his lap time, but doesn't move up a spot, so stays second behind George Russell's Mercedes. Now, all the talk, of course, has been coming up in this weekend about his new teammate Yuki Tsunoda, and when the news first came out, well, I managed to get a little chat with Yuki Tsunoda in, I think, before anyone else.
First call I got was from Christian, and I did meeting also in person. Was planned to go to Milton Keynes anyway for RB car simulator, and I heard expectation from him, what expecting from myself, and also what kind of team dynamics they're having. Basically, he said welcome to Red Bull Racing, and he was excited. Yeah.
Well, so what were those expectations that Christian Horner said to you?
Well, be close as much as possible to Max. In the end, Red Bull Racing are focused to, Max to score a driver championship. He proves himself enough to, be a good potential to be world champion, even though Red Bull seems a little bit struggling now. But, I'm sure they will develop the car as much as possible this year, and will be better end of the season. And also in that process, he wanted to help me to develop the car. I think he also mentioned the feedback I was giving to the team last year in Abu Dhabi tests was really, really good. So he want me to continue that, but at the same time, as a performance, he want me to be close to Max as possible. So in order to maybe some race I can help him for the strategy. But also he promised me that, you know, in some situation, if I able to be ahead of Max, he wouldn't necessarily ask me to swap the position and, you know, let the team Max win. So, I mean, I think it's very fair, and I'm sure it won't be easy anyway to, you know, straight away, you know, beat Max, you know, like, also I just have to get used to the car. So, yeah, but still I'm very excited.
We know this game is a brutal one. You mentioned, obviously, Formula One it is full of politics, and I wonder, on the other side of things, have you been able to have a chat with Liam and Lawson at all? Obviously, I know you two got on really well as teammates at Racing Bulls. He's still going to be there. You're doing the swap. Have you got a bit of sympathy for him as well?
I think for our relationship, I don't think hopefully as a friendship, we won't make anything ruin or, you know, get damaged. I think I felt it a little bit, to be honest, first half of the season this year. So we don't have friendship we used to have probably when we were fighting junior categories. But I think that's natural. You know, we always fighting for the seat and, you know, everything. So, but I know he's a funny guy, and I know how to make our relationship good. But just let's see how it goes. It's not easy, and I understand anything happen because, I mean, I was okay in the end this year. Start of this year, I was already switched to RB mode, Racing Bulls mode, to have success with that team. I was not trying to really affect our relationship. Yeah, I mean, I understand both ways, and I hope we still have a good relationship.
Yuki Tsunoda chatting to me a little earlier on in the week, and you can hear the full chat with Yuki on the Checkered Flag podcast, which is available right now over on BBC Sounds. Alice Powell is alongside me for free practice one for the Japanese Grand Prix. It's 34 minutes and 7.65 seconds remaining. It's George Russell who's currently the fastest time out there. I thought with that chat with Yuki, I thought he was quite honest with his sort of analysis of the situation. I think the thing that's been picked up on the fact is he said, if I'm quicker, I won't necessarily be asked to swap out the way. And the response to that being one step at a time, Yuki. But I think his personality in general, that will help him deal with this Red Bull seat.
No, I agree. I think his attitude is not say attitude, that's the wrong word, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head actually. Personality is different, as we were just saying. Lance Stroll getting all out of shape on the throttle on the exit of turn 11, but he doesn't seem to let things maybe affect him as much. He's got much more experience than Liam Lawson, which I think is gonna help him in terms of seat time in Formula One. So that's going to be a big help to him, and he just seems like he doesn't care as much, as in care about the outside noise as much. And if he does, he's a little bit like Max. He'll say what he thinks to the media there. Like, he was quite honest with you when he said, well, actually, yeah, my relationship's not quite the same as it used to be with Liam, and that is natural because in the way that they're fighting for a seat, and this is not fighting for a Formula 4 seat or a Formula 3 seat. This is fighting for a seat at the top level of our sport in Formula 1, and the seat that everybody wants is up against Max Verstappen, racing with Red Bull, a championship winning car. So that relationship is naturally going to be strained. So yeah, for him, he seems very honest. He seems like he's got his feet on the ground at the moment. He knows, of course, he's aware that the challenge is going to be difficult. He's had people, including Pierre Gasly, ring up and share their advice. Obviously, Pierre was put into that Red Bull seat and then taken out of the Red Bull seat, and Pierre, I know they're very good friends, shared what he would have done differently, and I'm sure Yuki would have taken plenty of that on board. As we've got a few drivers now, Harry, putting on the soft tyre. George Russell opens his gap once again. Norris getting all out of shape. McLaren's not looking very comfortable on this medium set of tyres. Piastri had the same thing when he was out earlier on. He's now on the soft tyre, so it's going to be interesting to see how that McLaren responds to that extra grip. But Russell already in the 128s, and the track compared to free practice one last year 1:30 was 0.0 was Max Verstappen's time. So that new tarmac proving to be slightly better. But George Russell really is on fire. 0.7 of a second clear of Max Verstappen's lap time in P2, which was set on the soft tyre, as Oscar Piastri's not even done a personal best on this soft in the first sector. He pops up into P3, but 1 second shy of George Russell, who seems to be enjoying his time out on the circuit at the moment. His teammate Kimi Antonelli has not set a time on the soft tyre, but he's down in 16th place.
Lando Norris was really pushing on that last lap on the medium tyre, ended up coming into the pits because he was getting all out of shape coming into the Casio Triangle section. The right-hander clips the curb, but before he even clips the curb, the rear end is going round on him, just manages to save it. The tyre's screaming for dear life, and then as he turns it into the left-hander, then bails out into the pit lane. So more to come then from Lando Norris and McLaren. On George Russell, who is fastest with a 1:28.809, 4/10 ahead of his teammate Kimi Antonelli. I feel like it's been a quietly superb start for George Russell, because he's another man that there is a bit of pressure on there. There is a contract that needs to be re-signed with Mercedes. There could be a Max Verstappen for the taking, and if Antonelli improves like we have been made to believe he will be, this wonder kid, Russell actually right now is doing everything he needs to do to showcase why he is the man actually to lead that team forward long into the future.
He certainly is. He's half a second faster than his teammate at the moment. Antonelli's jumped up into second place, but he's taken that lead role, we could say, of coming over from Lewis Hamilton, of course, leaving the team like a pro. He always walks around with an air of confidence to George Russell round the paddock, and that's certainly translating at the moment to his on-track driving. He's finished on the podium in consecutive races for the first time since Netherlands and Italy back in 2022. So that's also a showcase that maybe Mercedes have finding their feet a little bit more this season, as Yuki Tsunoda now jumps up into P2. 3.5 off George Russell's time, but importantly for him at the moment, slightly faster than Max Verstappen, who is just coming out of the pits now, but that'll give Yuki some very good confidence for the start of this session. But George doing a great job, and again that's what highlights the importance of keeping it consistent in terms of the constructors, which Ferrari, as we touched on, didn't do last weekend with that exclusion.
Sun is shining over the Suzuka circuit. Blue skies interrupted by some puffy white clouds. Air temperature a little on the cooler side though, 13.8 degrees. Track temperature ramping up though, 36.2 degrees. A bit of wind in the air as well, keeping the cars on their toes. And with 27 minutes and 45, 44, 43 seconds remaining of this first practice session of the weekend, it's the Mercedes of George Russell who has looked quick from the get-go, still fastest, ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull. Then comes Kimi Antonelli. Tsunoda though, 3.5 off Russell. We're about to see what his teammate Max Verstappen can do, making his way through sector 1 now. The Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto gets out of the way nicely as Verstappen makes his way, constantly turning that steering wheel left then right, then left then right again, up over the Dunlop curve, carving round through the left-hander. You then approach almost a quick tap on the brakes to the first Degner. Then before you know it, you're down a short straight and into the second right-hander that makes up the Degner curves. Then it's a slight curve towards the hairpin. Gets it nice and tidy, just about pointed in the right direction for Max Verstappen as he applies the throttle on the soft tyre. Downhill now, past the Racing Bulls car of Isaac Hadjar and Liam Lawson, who both led him through into Spoon Curve. Always looks like quite a tricky corner to get right, Spoon Curve. Here is Tsunoda on the radio.
Delta to Russell's iconic 3/10.
Yeah, I think let's focus on ourselves. I don't need much of reference time.
Understood.
Yuki Tsunoda being quite clear with what he wants on the radio to his new engineer. A whole nother relationship he'll have to get to build up. Richard Wood is the man talking to him on the radio from the Red Bull pit wall. Round the final corner, though, for Tsunoda's teammate Max Verstappen hugs the wall to cross the line, and it's just 2.5 tenths back from George Russell. Verstappen second, not too far ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, that's a good lap time from Max in the Red Bull, and Yuki will he will compare to his teammate, that's for sure. I don't know whether he was referring to ourselves as just him, as George Russell is fastest of anyone once again in that first sector, only slightly faster than Max Verstappen. Mercedes looks nice and compliant over the curbs at the final chicane there, much better than we saw the outboard shot of Lando Norris on the medium tyre. Heads across the line, slightly faster, 128.712, just stretches his lead ever so slightly to now Charles Leclerc, who pops up in the Ferrari in P2. Oscar Piastri, he's out, heads through Spoon, famous corner on this circuit. The long really tests the strength of a driver's core stability and neck through turn 13 and 14, and then up the hill, down the straight, and fires it round turn 15. Sparks fly from the back of the McLaren, but it's not looking fantastic. It's just seeing that it just bounces not quite as nicely as I'm sure the drivers would like over the curbs at turn 16 and 17, which, to be fast, Harry, you have to really get on top of them, as Oscar doesn't really improve at all, stays in P9, just drops in the end down to P10. Lando Norris now, he's out through Spoon curve, and you can just see he had to bleed out of the throttle on the exit of turn 13, all the way up the hill, then through 130R. And looking at his first sector, Harry, he's down in 12th at the moment. He's losing a little bit of time in the first couple of sectors to the Mercedes of George Russell.
Onto the brakes, into the Casio triangle, the right-hander beckons, then the left, and he almost loses the car again. He does, the rear steps out, and he's gone onto the gravel, manages to scrape it through, doesn't come into the pit lane, stays out, as the McLaren pit wall watch on, rather forlornly it must be said. Another exact spot where Lando Norris has struggled to get that car turned in before, without losing the rear end of it. So you're right, I think this McLaren is looking a little tricky around this Suzuka circuit. Piastri 10th, and Norris not able to complete that quick lap on the soft tyre, down in 13th.
It's not looking good over the curbs, it must be said, for that McLaren, as we ride on board with it now. Easy flat for any F1 car through 130R, hits the brakes, so there is a car on the inside but doesn't trouble him, and it's that final curve just as he turns in and rides the curb, that rear steps out as he tries to apply some throttle, and that fires him slightly wide into the gravel, which again is a nice unique thing for this circuit here, that if you do make a mistake even like that, you do run wide and it punishes you, as we hear from Liam Lawson.
Okay, just to be clear, I was well out of his way when he went off.
Copy.
Yeah, I agree. He was well out of his way, was Liam, when Lando ran wide, so no distraction there. But it's not looking good for McLaren at the moment, as Charles Leclerc now is out once again on the soft tyre to test himself, to try and close that gap to George Russell. Not a personal best, though, in the middle sector from the Ferrari driver. Slightly faster in the first sector. He may improve his time if he can keep or find a little bit more pace in this final sector, but he's going to have a little bit of traffic of one of the stakes. I think they would have just got in his way, Harry.
Yeah, and might well give him a little bit of a slipstream to begin the next lap if he keeps his foot planted. But then there's a Williams as well, and it all gets rather bottled up going into turn 1. It was Alex Albon there as well. Tsunoda's back out there on the track, but he, despite pinning a personal best in the middle sector, looks like he backed off in the final sector. He's down in 4th. It is Russell quickest. Leclerc about a 2.5 tenths back from him. Then it's Verstappen, Tsunoda and Antonelli, the top 5, as Alex Albon, we've just seen a replay, locking up into the hairpin and heading straight into the gravel and the grass, manages to rejoin onto the track, but his soft tyres looking rather worse for wear. Front lock up on the front left tyre caused that.
Just as he was starting to apply some steering lock, maybe a little bit too much brake pressure, nipped that inside front left, and he had to quickly then release the brake so he didn't go sailing on into the tyre barrier there at turn 14, release that lock. Gravel slowed him down. He just managed to keep out of the way. So I think it was Hulkenberg that would have boxed Charles Leclerc in. He's down in 20th place at the moment, so not having a great time. Bortoleto is up in 16th, has set a lap on the soft tyre. Hulkenberg now, he'll be coming to set his very first lap on the softs, but he's not reached Q3 or scored a point at Suzuka since 2016, so he'll be looking to change that stat. It just popped up into P15, so slight improvement from him.
Yeah, it's not often we have that much to say about Sauber, but they do have some decent news coming into this weekend, which is that Jonathan Wheatley will make his debut as team principal. The former Red Bull man, having served his gardening leave, is now officially the TP for the team that will become Audi and their full factory team next year, with Hulkenberg and Bortoleto signed up for that as well. So that brings a nice bit of direction to the team, Alice. It's when you're in a team like this, it can probably feel like there's not that much direction, I imagine, because in terms of your identity and your brand, let's be honest, they're a bit all over the shop at the moment. But when they become Audi, it feels like that will be determined and focused. Big manufacturer, and somebody like Jonathan Wheatley, who's not been a team principal before, he'll surely be chomping at the bit to make an impression too.
He will, but he comes with so much experience, so much knowledge from being at Red Bull, winning races, winning championships, and a mechanic from where he first started off, so knows what it's like to be working those long hours in the garage on the floor with the mechanics. So he comes with a whole wealth of experience and knowledge, which of course Audi, Sauber, Stake, whatever you want to call them, heading into 2026 will really appreciate his knowledge. But this track is starting to improve, I think. Now Lando Norris has just jumped up into top spots. The McLaren looking much better than it did on the previous lap through that chicane. He's 1.5 tenths clear of George Russell, but this is what we usually see, don't we, towards the end of a free practice one in particular, when that track just starts to clean up ever so slightly. Liam Lawson is out there now on a soft tyre, along with his new teammate Isaac Hadjar, but I think Lawson has backed out. It must have been a mistake in that middle sector somewhere, because it wasn't a great sector. But Hadjar now, he'll be coming up behind him. Flovis paint on the left-hand side of the push rods on the front. A slight lock-up on the outside left, but navigates the chicane quite nicely, nice and smooth to throttle, hugs the inside wall to shorten that distance to the line, and jumps up into P10, just under 7 tenths off Lando Norris's 128.5.
Good lap from the French rookie in the Racing Bulls, as Carlos Sainz in the Williams crosses the line to go 10th with 17 minutes and 55 seconds left on the clock, though, for FP1. It is Lando Norris who is fastest with a 128.5. He's gone back into the pits, but he is the man to beat at the moment. He is the man at the top of the Drivers' Championship. Let's hear what he had to say coming into this weekend.
I mean, it's been a very, very good start to the year. Still not easy, but to start with the best car and to start with a car as impressive as it is in such tough competition is a lot of credits to the team. So I've said it many times already, but always a big thanks to them. Makes my life a bit easier, that's for sure. But it's the job. We want the best car. We work hard to make the car as quick as possible, and that's what they're giving us as drivers. So a good start, but always things to improve.
Do you think, Alice, that McLaren can keep the whole "we have two number one driver" mantra going if Norris and Piastri are fighting for a world championship, both their firsts? Surely you can't have two number ones in a Formula One team.
Well, no, it's hard to have two number ones, but I think at this period of the season they need to treat them equally, because they're both doing a fantastic job at the moment. We're just going to see a replay of Fernando Alonso, who's looking left, looking right in his mirror, and something maybe slightly loose on the front of the Aston Martin. I think actually it could just be possibly a little bit of vinyl that's come loose potentially, or
so they haven't stuck down the number one of his number properly.
Yeah, from the pitot tubes that are sticking out at the top there, the sensors. Something come slightly loose, but I think at this stage of the season, Harry, you can't have a number one because they're both doing a great job. Piastri did a really solid effort in China and very much deserved to have that win. So at this point, no, but certainly later on in the season, once it gets down to real crunch time, they'll then have to have a look at potentially having a number one, depending on who produces the best pace, the best lap time out there.
15 minutes and 35, 34, 33 seconds remain of free practice one. It's Lando Norris in the McLaren fastest, a tenth and a half clear of George Russell. Then 4 tenths back is the first of the Ferrari, Charles Leclerc ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen is fifth ahead of his new teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Alonso is seventh ahead of Hadjar. Antonelli and Sainz make up the top 10. Then comes Alex Albon ahead of Ryo Hirakawa, the Japanese driver making his FP1 debut for Alpine in place of Jack Doohan. He is 12th. Lawson is 13th ahead of Gasly. Then comes Oscar Piastri in 15th ahead of Stroll. Hulkenberg and Bortoletto, the two Salvers, are 17th and 18th ahead of the two Haas cars languishing at the back. Ollie Behrman ahead of Esteban Ocon, 20th and last, as Fernando Alonso crosses the line in his Aston Martin, just trying to get to see if there is something still flapping around on the front end. No, they think they managed to either fix that or it's fixed itself while making its way around the track. There was a stat I saw in the build-up to this week which didn't make for too happy reading. Alonso's winless streak now counts for exactly 50% of his career. That's a tough
Benny
one to read.
Then he's going to be crying in the media centre to that stat. But I think that's obviously not a great stat, but that's
just highlights how long he's been a Formula 1 driver for.
It does, and I think it also highlights that he's not really had the car. He probably deserves to have had a better race car underneath him for that percentage of time that he's been in Formula 1, because we all know that Fernando Alonso is just someone super special. That is still why he's in Formula 1. A little bit like Lewis Hamilton. His experience, his knowledge, his raw pace that he can bring to a team is hugely important, which is why he is at Aston Martin still, and they've not put the likes of Felipe Drogovic in. Why Stroll is at Aston Martin still? Well, that's you can guess why. That's a different conversational topic. But yeah, it's not a great stat for him, but that's got nothing to do with his driving ability, and is always a driver that I say deserves more success than he's had.
This will be his 19th appearance at Suzuka this weekend, so a man with the most experience of this circuit, who is currently in 7th spot. His teammate Lance Stroll down in 16th at the moment, so quite a bit of disparity between the two Aston Martin drivers. Talking of experienced drivers, and we'd spoken a lot naturally about Yuki Tsunoda this weekend. You said it was Pierre Gasly who gave him some messages of support, but also Sergio Perez, of course the original occupier of that seat, was also quite supportive in the build-up with an interview that he did with F1 this week about Tsunoda, and there is even the possibility of teasing a return to Formula 1 for Sergio Perez if he finds the right project. What could that project be, Alice?
Good question. I mean, his dad teased something like that towards the end of last season, didn't he? He said, yeah, don't worry, Sergio will be in F1. We've got loads of conversations going on, and I can't see him out there at the moment. We can't see Bogdanovic out there either, but...
No, that's Bahrain, Alice. Bahrain.
That's Bahrain.
Easy mistake to make, don't you worry about it.
I'm pulling your leg. But, yeah, I can't see him getting a route back in.
Surely
anytime
Cadillac
soon.
is the main possibility.
That is an option, because they will need someone with experience, so there's potential room for him to come in there, as Max Verstappen has a lock-up on his build-up to what I think was going to be a push lap, but maybe slightly aborted now. But yeah, I can't see at this moment in time anywhere for him to come in other than potentially Cadillac.
Well, the Mexican driver gave himself 6 months at the start of the year to just enjoy life outside of Formula 1. The first time he's ever had
enjoy his millions.
A year off. Well, he certainly got a lovely payout, didn't he, from Red Bull? And I wonder if there
was... I would take some time off with that money.
Yeah, but I wonder, obviously, they gave Perez a lot of time, right, to try and recover. So I wonder, is the fact that they gave Lawson such little time almost as a response to the fact that they probably didn't act quick enough with Perez, and so they went a bit overboard with Lawson and just cut their losses straight away?
I think that's probably a very small part of it. I think there's a whole other reason of why Perez was still in that seat. As it's a shame we've not got Benny here, because I know that he would be certainly have a strong opinion of that. But yeah, he there's the whole host of other reasons. I still, like I said at the start, I still feel that they should have given Liam a lot more time, as we hear from Charles Leclerc.
How is the deceleration? Feels bad.
No, deceleration is good. We see more tailwind into braking turn 11.
So Charles Leclerc, who was asking for some feedback on the deceleration, being told it looks fine, but and told the direction of the wind, a tailwind. Can you sort of decode that for us, Alice? Why is Charles Leclerc... Surely he should be the one feeling if the deceleration is bad or not.
Well, yeah, but you've got other outside factors like the wind that's proving to be a bit of a menace for certainly for him out there, and that's just as it's plain and simple the deceleration going into turn 11, which is the hairpin that's out on the track. He just feels like the car is not slowing down as it should. They'll be comparing to previous data, but they'll also be comparing to Lewis, who is a fraction slower than Charles Leclerc. So he's obviously feeling that it's not as he wishes going into turn 11. And of course, if they do have a tailwind, that's going to be pushing the rear of the car on, which will make it harder for him to stop. If it was the other way around, if he had a headwind, it would make it easier for him to slow the car down.
Well, less than 10 minutes left, indeed 8 minutes and 50 seconds. Here's Norris on the radio.
Any grading? I know this. I feel like I'm grading already.
Possible that Russell has the beginning of grading. He's on his 4th high fuel lap.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So Lando Norris is complaining, or reporting at least, that he's starting to experience graining on the tyres, and I think rather hopefully asking if anybody else is having that problem. Norris and a couple others, and we are starting to see some high fuel running, a bit of long running race simulation towards the end of this FP1 session. But graining on a track like this, Alice, is not something we're too surprised to see.
No, there's a lot of load that goes through these cars, lateral, longitudinal. Certainly when you're pushing so hard through that first sector, really takes a lot of life out of the tyre. But certainly by the time you get to that final part through Spoon, up then in through to sector 3, which is the shortest sector on the track, only roughly under 20 seconds long. But we're used to seeing degradation here, but it sounds like Lando's got a little bit of a concern early on in his high fuel runs that there's a little bit too much degradation, as Liam Lawson's back out once again on the soft tyre. But he's over 2 seconds down in that first sector. He's down in 13th place at the moment, 1 second off the pace of Lando Norris, and 3/10 shy of his teammate Isaac Hajar, who's up in 8th place.
Hardest compound of tyres in the range being brought by Pirelli this weekend to try and combat the high degradation levels experienced at Suzuka. The C1 running as the hard compound tyre, making its debut for the season, and as such, all the drivers having to no one out there on the soft at the moment, but we saw them on the hard earlier on in the session, trying to get to grips with that structure. But 6 minutes, 35, 34, 33 seconds remain of free practice 1, and after the quick runs earlier on, it is Lando Norris, a 10th and a half ahead of the Mercedes of George Russell. Then there's a little bit more of a gap to the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Red Bulls, Alonso, Hadjar, Antonelli, and Carlos Sainz rounding out the top 10. We haven't really spoken too much about Sainz. We've seen him missed his pit box earlier and drove straight past Williams, but he is another driver who has had a tricky start to a new life at a new team with Williams. Managed to get his first points on the board in China, but only really as a result of his old team getting disqualified. Made a mistake, I think, or wasn't quite gelling with the car at the same time in the tricky conditions in Australia, so that saw him crash out. And his comments after China saying things just felt strange. It's proving trickier than he thought to get to grips with this car, because his teammate Albon's been flying.
Yeah, Albon's had the experience of driving that Williams for a few seasons now. Of course, Sainz is new to it. He's had a better performing car in the Ferrari, so it's clearly taking him a little bit of time to adapt to the Williams, but I think still one of the strongest driver pairings that we have on the grid. Slightly ahead of Alex Albon at the moment on time, riding on board with Alex. A lot of drivers out on the race runs. Essentially, Alex is out on the medium tyre. Now, Lewis Hamilton's just come on the radio saying he's struggling with some understeer. So that's just the front axle pushing on, not giving him that bite that he wants it through the corners. But yeah, he struggled, but I wouldn't write him off at the moment. He made that mistake in Australia, which a lot of other drivers made the same thing. Okay, most of them were the rookies, but no, I think he's still finding his feet at Williams, but still a strong pairing that they have at Williams.
Finished on the podium here last year, did Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. He said he needs 5 to 10 races to unlearn Ferrari habits. So, I mean, that's almost half a season, really, these days, or just under that.
That's a lot of time.
That is a lot of time. But it obviously showcases how difficult it is. It's like starting a new school, isn't it? You've got to know everybody's names, and you've got your new steering wheel to try and understand.
I've only just learnt your name, Harry, and gosh, known you for a while.
Too long.
But it's getting out of those habits, those. How maybe he applies the brake, how he turns into the corner, how he potentially rides the curbs differently from one car to another. It's all these little things that will then add up to half a tenth here or a tenth here, and then you add that up to, for example, we've got 18 corners on this circuit. Okay, some of them are quite easy flat, but if you're losing a couple of hundredths here and there, we'll hear from Norris.
From what we see, we don't see damage to the tyres. So if we can push to understand them, that'll be best.
Yeah, but how can you not see my front left screen? It's very obvious.
I mean, they'll be looking at the same camera angles that we've got on our TV screen here, and the front didn't look too badly grained compared to Russell. But Lando clearly feeling something totally different as off goes wide as Kimi Antonelli. That looks like the exit of turn 11. Harry probably having a slight lock-up, something similar that we saw from Alex Albon earlier on.
Yeah, I think that was coming through the hairpin, and he gets it back onto the track. His tyres covered in gravel and grass and a bit of dust as well, but a quick drive around will clean those up, but the tyres won't be much use to him after that. Gets out of the way of the Williams of Carlos Sainz, who makes his way through. We haven't seen how Antonelli found himself into the gravel, but I would predict perhaps a lock-up. I'm sure we'll get a replay of it in a few moments' time. We also saw Esteban Ocon just come across the line, improved his lap time, but only up to 19th. The two Haas drivers were really struggling at the back of the field. This is a replay of Antonelli, hits the brakes, and it's a front left lock-up.
Yeah, just again, something similar, very similar. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, locked up.
Yes, sounds pretty chill about it.
Yeah, you certainly did. similar incident to Alex Albon, just on that later part of the braking zone, just when you're putting more weight on that front axle, you're squashing the front tyres into the track. The downforce starts to bleed off.
There is also a bit of an elevation change as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, which will have a small effect, but looking for him there, it was just too much steering lock, possibly a bit too late on the brakes with too much brake pressure, and snatched that front inside left tyre as Valtteri Bottas watches on. Third reserve driver for Mercedes. Great to see him still about the paddock, a big character. Didn't have the best at times certainly for Mercedes, still racked up a nice number of wins, but certainly would have liked to have been closer to Lewis Hamilton at his period of time with Mercedes. We're riding on board now with Bortoletto's out there on the hard tyre, making his way through, new to this circuit as well, like the likes of Hadjar and Antonelli. But again, a rookie that I think is doing a fairly decent job in comparison to his more experienced teammate in Nico Hülkenberg. At the moment, they're separated by just over 1/10 of a second, albeit down in 17th and 18th place.
Yeah, Bortoletto and his teammate Hülkenberg had disaster first laps in China, both losing the car. Hülkenberg just about clung onto it, but Bortoletto found himself in the gravel on lap 1, and having watched the replays on board of both drivers, that car just looked so difficult to control, and that's what Bortoletto, the Brazilian rookie who's actually managed by Fernando Alonso, has been saying this weekend. They're just trying to make the car more stable and predictable and try and put in the lappage to understand it. He's, I think him and Antonelli, although I don't know for certain, but I think Antonelli has driven around this track in some form of car before, but Bortoletto has never driven around this track before in any kind of means. Hadjar did a test, a Honda test with the Super Formula car. Lawson has raced here as well. Doohan's done Asian Formula 3 here too. Behrman did a test for Super Formula at the end of last year, so they've all got some kind of experience around this track. I don't think Bortoletto has any of the like. He's currently down in 19th, only ahead of Ollie Behrman, the two Haas cars who fast-tracked an upgrade this weekend to the floor in an effort to try and improve their efforts. You may think, well, they had an absolutely amazing Chinese Grand Prix, but Ayaka Komatsu, the team principal, is not convinced that has solved any kind of the issues that they experienced in Australia, particularly through high-speed corners. So the fluctuations and the consistency of that Haas car still trying to be worked out throughout the course of this weekend. Behrman gets himself up to 18th as the checkered flag is out, and that's the first hour of practice done to kickstart the Japanese Grand Prix weekend. And it's Lando Norris and McLaren, despite that car not looking completely hooked up and Norris not feeling too comfortable out into the circuit, struggling with graining. He's still the quickest man out there, a 1:28.549, 10th and a half ahead of George Russell in the Mercedes. Charles Leclerc for Ferrari is third, ahead of his teammate Hamilton. A good first session for Yuki Tsunoda, a 10th or so away from his teammate Max Verstappen. They are 5th and 6th. Then comes Alonso, Hadjar, Kimi Antonelli and Carlos Sainz, who just had a lock-up in his last flying lap, cut across the chicane in the final corner. He rounds out the top 10 ahead of his teammate Alex Albon. Ryo Hirakawa, the Japanese endurance champion, in place for Jack Doohan this weekend, finished 12th, a decent run out for the Japanese driver actually, ahead of Liam Lawson. Gasly was 14th, ahead of Oscar Piastri. Lance Stroll 16th, Nico Hülkenberg 17th, ahead of Ollie Behrman, Ocon and Bortoletto, the top 20. So Alice, despite us saying that, well, actually McLaren look like they might be struggling, well, Norris at least did get the fastest lap of the session, but I think there's clearly work to be done there for both McLaren drivers.
Yeah, it doesn't look comfortable, the McLaren, particularly in that final sector. Okay, he pretty much had set the pace in all sectors. Certainly in the first two, wasn't too far off in the final sector. But that ride of the curbs doesn't look great. Piastri's down in 15th. Clearly didn't get the best out of his McLaren, but also looks like it's struggling slightly. But George Russell, he should be pretty pleased, constantly up there, whether that would be on the medium tyre or the soft tyre.
And a good first session for Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, just over a tenth away from his teammate Max Verstappen. I know it's only FP1, but that is a solid start for the Japanese.
Very solid start. That'll build his confidence nicely. He'll get out of the car with a smile on his face. I'm sure it's closer than he could be, really, to Max Verstappen. So as the drivers line up to do their practice starts on the grid, Liam Lawson, I think he'll be slightly disappointed with that. He's adrift of his teammate Hajar. Hajar's is in 8th place with a 29.2, Lawson with a 29.5, so a few tenths shy. Was I hear from Tsunoda?
Yeah, also quite messy. I think, I could give you feedback, but I found it kind of interesting. But it's not. But yeah, it's okay. Good sesh.
Yeah. Good sesh.
I found the car interesting on the track. Well, he was building up to this weekend saying, well, he's done it in the simulator and it seems okay, but now he gets a taste of the real thing, and now he knows what all the drivers who've been in that second seat have felt. But could he be the one to break that curse of the second Red Bull seat?
He'll hope so. And it's a good start, as we've already touched on, for him this weekend. Interesting in a sense, I'd love to know, but certainly it could be the characteristics with handling, the way he applies the throttle, the braking. There's many ways we could decode that message.
Well, we will be chatting more about that at FP2. Don't you worry about it. That is FP1 done and dusted. Lando Norris fastest for McLaren ahead of George Russell's Mercedes and Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, thanks to Alice Powell. You can join us for FP2 on 5 Sports Extra, BBC Sounds and your smart speaker from 6:55 in the morning. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.